Well, the International AIDS Conference recently concluded with a declaration titled Turning the Tide Together. The 9-point declaration on ending the AIDS epidemic says that decades of community advocacy, research and service has the world poised for the possibility that the AIDS epidemic can be solved in our lifetimes. In part 2 of my interview with Dr. Nicholas Muraguri, the director of the Global Plan Secretariat, UN AIDS and PEPFAR, he talks about the future and what must be done now.
For the first time, people have started talking about end of HIV. So turning the tide. And that is the momentum that is being created. And the very first step is having a HIV-free generation, in other words, having children without HIV. So really that's the first baby steps towards ending HIV. There's a lot of talk about vaccine development, there's a lot of talk about cure for HIV. But those are miles away. But even what is known to work today, we need to double our effort to ensure that the coverage and access services is good. Because that's where the gap is. Even what is known to work, male circumcision, for example. We haven't circumcised every male who needs to be circumcised. We haven't tested every person who needs to know the HIV status. We haven't provided ARVs to those who need to be provided ARVs. So moving forward, we're talking about end of HIV/AIDS, and basically it's starting to ensure that this arsenals or all the prevention interventions that are known to work today, people actually access.
There's been a little buzz about possible cure.
Yeah.
How far ahead do you think we can look into a time when there'll be a vaccination or a cure?
We must say over the last few years, we made a lot of advances in science around some of the best drugs, but we're still far away. There's still at the experimentation stage. We want to understand the virus better. We need to understand where it hides, how to destroy it within the tissue, human tissue, and so on. So as we stand now, there are a lot of advances in understanding the disease and how it can be tackled. But a cure per se is still far away, but scientists are trying to do their best to ensure they advance the science required to get at least a cure for HIV.
Thinking about your own neighborhood, that's Kenya, East Africa, and Africa in general, what kind of message would you give both to those who are HIV positive, those who are not infected, the political players, policymakers, and all that are involved in the fight against HIV?
Given the current scenario, the economic scenario and financing environment we find ourselves in, African governments must do much more to mobilize domestic resources for their own responses. Everything is kind of stabilized in terms of the funding from whatever sources. And African government must step up as part of shared responsibility and solidarity to do much more for their own people, use their own domestic resources to finance the HIV response. So that's a very important piece of message coming from these meetings, that African government must provide more resources to the response. But more important is the whole issue of accountability. The leader that is coming down must do what it's supposed to do. So we must do much more to ensure that the resources are coming actually are put to good use. And now I just want to figure out the issue of male circumcision. It reduces the risk of a man acquiring HIV by 60%. But we haven't circumcised as many people should circumcise in the region. And our leadership must come out strongly to advocate for scaling up of services that we are known to work.
And some of the things also kind of require cultural change. I mean, for communities that don't circumcise, you're actually telling adults to get circumcised.
Yeah, and that is where we need the political leadership and social leadership. We must tell people that what they're trying to do is a whole mental change. We are not doing it for cultural reasons. Most people get circumcised for religious or cultural reasons. We are not doing it for medical reasons. So that's the message we need to. So we must create that social environment that makes it more acceptable for an adult man, married or not married, to come forward and have himself circumcised. So that is what the leadership is all about. Provide that environment that builds confidence among young African males to come forward and accept circumcision.
Well, that was Dr. Nicholas Muraguri, the Director, Global Plan Secretariat, UN AIDS and PEPFAR.